Hello, I'm Scott Bogey here with Dusty Shaffer ahead of his fight against Antonio Carlos, not Carlos, Castello. He's about to do the cold plunge. I'll let him take it away.
I'm about to start this podcast off with a little bit of fun here that I like to do in Ohio when it gets cold. We're going to do a quick 3 minutes here. And Scott, feel free to ask away anything you want to know about me. Do this thing.
And
Ooh.
how are you feeling ahead of your upcoming fight?
I feel great. Like, out of every fight that I've had, this is the one that I am, other than my last fight, just because of the competition that I was going up against. The excitement of this one and the background of it is what really is fueling my fire right now.
And do you feel like his vast experience is going to prove to be the toughest test of him?
You know, I mean, no fight's going to be easy. I understand that. This, uh, he does have experience, yes. But is that going to be something that I'm going to allow to get in the way of how I go about this fight? No. I mean, I also have experience myself.
Yeah.
It might not be exactly in the MMA world, but I've spent my entire life wrestling. And just that alone, you're talking about 200 plus fights before even starting my MMA career. So it's like experience doesn't really like affect, um, you know, it's not the driving
Down
concern
force.
here, I should
Yeah.
say.
And obviously you're doing the code plunge just now. What benefits do you feel like that brings to your game?
So the reason I wanted to do this and talk to you at the same time is primarily to remain composed also through like a high stress
Yeah.
situation, like putting yourself in extremely cold water. My temperature right now is reading 32 degrees. So this is freezing cold. But my whole goal with doing these is to deal with stress and remain composed the entire time. Breath work ties into this, and then obviously recovery as well. This helps my muscles to recover faster, get blood to areas of my body that it wasn't previously able to get to. That's kind of like the science behind cold plunge if you look into it. And the key amount that you should do is about 3 minutes, which we are coming up on 2 minutes and 40 seconds right now. So I'm going to go ahead and hop out here in a second. That's really all you need
And how often do you do this?
every single day.
And is it something that it's going to become a routine, or is it just something that you just have to do?
This is definitely something that has become a routine. It's not something that I have to do, but it's just a part of how I keep my discipline drive
Yeah.
where I need it to be able to, do anything. It's all about doing the things that you don't want to do. And what that does is help build your anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And it's a part of
Yeah.
your brain that allows, that's the part of your brain that tells you not to do something and go the easy route. You're trying to build that up and go the opposite way. You're going to essentially go towards the harder route, but feel, more satisfied in the end. That's the end goal.
And how do you feel like Antonio is going to try to face you?
I feel that he is going to come at me with that brawler attitude, brawler mindset. He's going to try to get those wild swings on me, wild strikes, and he might even try to grapple with me. And I just think that all of it is going to fail.
Exactly. And like you said, you have got a lot of matches in the wrestling world. How do you feel like that experience translate into MMA?
So it just helps you be comfortable with competing at a very high level of concentration is required to compete.
Yeah.
And just that practice through my younger days, my younger wrestling career, has now got me to the point to where like when I go into an MMA fight, it's just like another day. You know, it's just being as calm as you possibly can.
Exactly.
All right, so go ahead and go into the last question that you were asking me.
And do you feel like having this wrestling background, do you feel like that is obviously there's been a lot of great wrestlers in the MMA world. You have Daniel Cormier, you have coming up, you have McKee, you have Bo Nickel who's doing his thing in the UFC. How do you feel like the wrestling is a major factor in the UFC compared to like a striker?
Wrestlers are just built different, man. We don't know how to quit. That's the thing about wrestlers is like, we can get hit and it's like a blow that you think would take, a typical person out. Wrestlers will just look at you, they'll smile, and then they'll just hit you even harder. And
Yeah,
that's kind of like a demoralizing thing when you give all that you got and it still doesn't make any progress for you. It's like, damn, well, what am I gonna do next? And
yeah.
I think that's something that wrestlers have that other fighters don't. And then when it comes to just, you know, control of the body in any sort of grappling and or clinch type of aspect of the fight, a wrestler is gonna have the upper hand. That's just like the trump card of martial arts, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. And do you feel like obviously wrestlers they have had a quite a difficult time, like Mokaev, Caleb Williams, they've announced that on publicly that Dana White they asked them to stop being as much of their wrestling style and go into striking a bit more. Do you feel like that's not because of their heavy wrestling style, but more because they weren't doing anything in the dominant positions?
Definitely. I mean, as my jiu-jitsu instructor Shannon White always says, if you don't like the position, get out, you know? If you can't get out, that's on you.
Exactly. There has been lots of great wrestlers that's come through the rank who weren't just holding you down. And that I think is what the Mukayev and Keith Williams were needing to do a bit more. Is to, even though you are just trying to keep them down, is to try and look for those submission attempts as well to just instead of just hug your opponent.
Right. The fans definitely want to see some action, so I can see where not only is it the fighters that get upset about those circumstances, but the fans as well. Like they don't want to see somebody get held down the entire time, but you just got to kind of understand that aspect of the sport is like if you can't get out, then you are lacking somewhere in your game. And obviously, as the guy who is controlling the situation, you should hunt for submissions. That's where, like, when you are a wrestler, but then you
Yeah.
turn and start to learn jujitsu, that's like, that's the most beautiful combination that you can have. It's like wrestling is just the less sophisticated cousin of jujitsu. So, obviously, if you're holding somebody down, let's give the fans what they want. Be active. Don't just ride the round out. That just kind of shows that, you might be a little tired, which in the end is boring. Just watch two guys lay around on each other. So,
And in your last fight, it was in July of this year. It was a defeat to, I think it was Abasov, I think that's how you pronounce it.
yes, sir.
What have you learned from that defeat?
So I would say primarily the biggest thing that I took from that fight is patience. It's to not like I went into that fight and I'm thinking, I'm gonna go out and just give it all I got right off the rip. And I remember even before I walked to the cage, I was just so amped up and so ready to go that I almost walked right through the referee that was checking me at the time. He's like, "Hey, wait, hold on a sec, slow your roll, buddy." Like we still gotta check you and do this and that. So yeah, I would say my biggest flaw in that fight was being very impatient and very aggressive, which in the end turned around to do damage to myself essentially because of being that way. So patience is the overall theme of what I learned from that last fight. And I mean, hats off to Abbas because I came out like a bat out of hell at him, and he was able to weather the storm. And he knew his striking was better than mine. He's probably been training striking longer than me, so understandable. But I was still able to stand toe to toe with him and go a full 3 rounds and give the fans what they wanted, which was a very fun fight, I will say.
Exactly. And is that kind of an area in which you're looking to try and showcase a bit more of this fight? Is that striking area?
Definitely. Every striking, or I shouldn't say every striking, but every fight that I have, I would love to showcase as much of my striking as possible because most people who know me personally know that striking is not my background.
Yeah.
It's not something that I spent my whole life doing. So to take something that I've only been training in for give or take 3 to 4 years now and showcase that on a level that can be seen, at the highest of stages is pretty cool to me. Just the amount of time spent and then being able to actually show the skill that has been attained throughout that short amount of time.
And then obviously you're taking the cold plunge each day. Is there anything else in that kind of like sort that you do to help you?
So I run every day as well. That's part of my cardio. Um, and typically my runs, they are about like 25 minutes. So if you think time-wise, that's a full championship round or full championship fight, I should
Yeah.
say. Um, Meditation and breath work. Like right now, I'm starting to feel the trembles of the post cold plunge. So what I'm doing is trying to control my body and the internal temperature. So it's all about being in tune with my body and being in control of it mentally and physically. And that's kind of why the daily aspect of doing these things is so important to me. It's all about discipline at the end of the day.
Exactly. So they kind of like with the saying, your body's your temple. You need to be able to kind of like control it.
Yes. And
Uh,
also be in tune with it too, like you want to understand why you feel the way you do.
yeah. And obviously, this will be your third fight of the year. Were you coming into this year? Did you have a set amount of fights that you wanted to do? Are you just wanting to stay as active as possible, or what was the goal for 2024?
The goal actually was 3 to 4 fights, which we are meeting that goal with this next fight. So, yeah, I wanted to be pretty active going into my first year of being
Yeah,
professional. That was more so to make a statement, but then also like I feel that I started a bit behind than some of these other like younger guys in
yeah.
the MMA community have started. So I feel that I had a little bit of catching up to do, and I'm not trying to rush any process here. It's just like I'm trying to gain as much experience as I possibly can.
And before your last fight, you did have a split decision victory against Kyle Zimic. How did you feel like that fight went? Did you feel like the split decision was deserved? Do you feel like it was more on your side than what the judges scored it as?
Yeah, definitely after going back after watching that fight again, I feel that the decision was definitely more on my side than anything because when it came down to pretty much all aspects of the fight, I was winning.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how. it was a split decision. I guess I could see a little bit as to maybe why a judge would swing it at least one round Kyle's way, but for the most part, when it came to striking and grappling, both sides, I had control. There was one instance of the fight where he did get a pretty deep chokehold on me, rear naked choke, which I was able to escape from and continue to attack him. So I guess that would be the one reason I can see why one of the three judges, would see it going his way.
And do you feel like, is there anything that you look for in a fight? Like, do you have any like favorite type of submissions, or are you just looking for anything that you can see?
Yeah, it's really anything that comes my way. I do have stronger submissions than others, but you can never really anticipate or be able to like foresee what actually is going to happen in the fight. So it's
Yeah.
like until you're actually there and an opportunity arises, if it's going to be an opportunity of a position that I'm very comfortable in, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to hesitate. But favorite submission, I mean, I got a couple that I really like that are fun ones. And if the opportunity arises, I feel that people would get a kick out of them too. Um, I can see certain positions definitely will arise throughout the fight more commonly than others. Like for say, a crucifix is one of my favorite type of submission holds
Yeah.
to find people in. And I have ways of finding it that are very unorthodox. Um, yeah, I mean, like when it comes to submissions, I try to think outside the box, but be practical with it.
And how do you come up with like code words for certain stuff in the cage? Because obviously you don't really want to just shout jab jab and then your opponent will obviously know what's going to happen. So how do you like come up with like codes and that?
So typically, we do have numbers that we'll use for certain combinations for me and my
Yeah.
coach. Um, then we also use fighters. So we'll use like classic OG type fighters that were involved in the sport and combos that are fitting to that specific
Yeah.
fighter. And we'll name that combo after that fighter. So that's another way to have quick type of a code word terminology that will help me understand what I need to do.
And then obviously you did have no, sorry, seven amateur fights, and you were quite successful in that. How was it to be able to get, 'cause in your last amateur one, I know you got the title. How was it to be able to get that title wrapped around your waist and call yourself a champion?
It was a cool feeling, but short-lived. I mean, yeah, amateur champion's cool and all, but there was much more to be accomplished, and that's
Yeah.
honestly the way I felt even after getting the belt wrapped around my waist. It was just like I enjoyed that moment, but I knew deep down that this was only the beginning of much bigger things to come.
And did you know after that victory, did you know then you were ready to go to that next level to turn pro? Or did you have to have that sit down with the coaches, just discuss it a bit further and evaluate all the options?
No, I knew, and it was actually after that fight that I had verbally said that I was intending to turn pro. This was something that was talked about with my coach as well, even before the fight. So it was really just we were trying to get to the right point to be able to approach like Ohio State Athletic Commission and propose the idea to give me the professional license and then go from there. So I also had guys around me that were turning pro around the same time, and I just felt that why continue to fight amateur when I could be making money,
Yeah.
you know? it didn't really make sense to me. There was
And then
no real like objective behind it other than just experience.
exactly. And then you do train, I think it's under the Apex Flight System, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And how has that been for your development in your game?
So Apex, that gym is a it's really a diamond in the rough. Like it's a hidden gem. The knowledge that I learned there comes from just common like-minded people that just love the sport of MMA and trade ideas about sometimes unorthodox, sometimes orthodox fighting styles. And it's like a setting inside that gym to where we could really like slow things down and understand it to the best of our ability, and then start to implement it into the training,
Yeah,
and then be able to practice it in sparring. And when it comes to the sparring that we get there, it's one of the best in the entire area, I would say. The other cool aspect of it is that I've started to actually coach guys there. So, like, coaching and training other guys and girls as well, actually. It really helps you to understand the game at a deeper level. And
yeah.
that's something that has really been a huge benefit from that gym.
Exactly. And I know come fight night, you'll be able to go out there, you'll showcase your abilities, get that victory, and we'll be able to speak ahead of the next big fight as well. Thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you're wanting to add, or is there anyone you're wanting to shout out?
Um, I'd definitely like to shout out all of my coaches, Shannon White, Derek Tranchito, and Brian Clark. All three guys have really done a lot for me. Shout out to all of my teammates, everyone that is in the gym every day, just wanting to get better. You guys all help drive me to get better. And it makes it enjoyable just being able to get away from everyday life for a couple hours
Yeah,
and go and just be around great people. I can't thank all of coaches and teammates included together. I cannot thank them enough. I
well,
mean, MMA really did help get me away from kind of an unhealthy lifestyle that was not leading me anywhere good, to be honest. So, and then, shouts out to the people behind the scenes that also really help get me to make this dream come true. My sponsors, my managers, there's there's a lot of it takes the dream team to make the dream true.
exactly.
So
Uh,
shouts out to that team.
Exactly. And thank you so much for coming on. I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. This is a pretty cool experience getting to talk with somebody from overseas, so I appreciate this.
Thank you.